Who are you?
Lois. Lois Lane.
I think that Lois very much was ahead of her time. You know, because the 50s, post-World War II, we went back to that perfect homemaker kind of thing, and she wasn't that. And I think it was really important to have that as a role model for girls my age.
Lois has always been there. I mean, she was Superman's girlfriend. She actually had a comic book that was called Lois Lane, Superman's girlfriend.
My agent said, well, you're going to play Lois Lane. I said, Lois Lane, Lois Lane, Lois Lane. So I dashed out to buy a comic book to see what she looked like.
I'd take my allowance, and that's when comic books were a dime. And I would go to the drugstore and buy Superman comics. I was a Superman addict.
I had watched all of the movies, of course, and was in love with the idea of it.
I had no knowledge of Lois Lane at all.
Lois, do you suppose you could get an interview with Wayne?
You bet I can.
Noel Neill and Phyllis Coates, who played it in The Adventures of Superman, played it very rough and tumble gal who could keep up with Clark.
Don't tell me you think you're a human lie detector.
Not exactly.
Cut it out. Only Superman could do a thing like that.
Lois Lane, bless her heart, was pretty much a working girl like I was going to be, in the business.
I watched Noel Neill when it was first on.
Just remember, somebody tried to dynamite you earlier today.
This is the very middle of a big city. It's bright daylight, and I'm a big girl.
She was spunky. She was Lois. She just was a career woman, and she didn't take any crap from anybody.
Don't bother. I think it's dead.
The problem with Men of Steel, there's never one around when you want one.
And then you get to the Superman movies, where Margot Kidder played her as sort of a combination of both. The woman who was in the comics, who was romantically infatuated, but at the same time had a lot of that Phyllis Coates and O'Neill part of the character, where she was just a tough broad.
Yeah, goodness, don't you ever let up?
Before. I mean, I've seen how the other half lives. My sister, for instance. 3 kids, 2 cats, and 1 mortgage.
Yeah.
I would go bananas in a week.
Oh, can I take you to the airport?
Not unless you can fly.
Well, she was very funny in the script and had just a fabulous smart-ass quality, which I kind of related to.
You really shouldn't smoke, Miss Lane.
Don't tell me lung cancer, right?
I think you very much play Lois in accord with your cultural times. And we were in the 70s. The women's movement as a mass movement really just caught fire in the States in the late 60s. Suddenly, you could be smart, and you were encouraged to be, and outspoken and go after whatever career. And it was that quick a change. So for those of us who went through that and really did feel quite literally liberated, it was huge. And you took that value that you had learned, and I think even unconsciously to a certain extent, you put it in your characters as an actress. And seeing as Lois's big thing was her job, I think it went with the turf. I mean, I think it was all there before. I just don't think anyone had attached the word feminist to it before.
You are low man. I am top banana, and that's the way I like it.
Teri's Lois was great because of all the reasons Lois is great in The Adventures of Superman. She is not a wimpy, I just want to get married to this greatest man on earth type character, which in the comics she had been a lot.
But winning and losing is not the sole object,
Well,
Lois.
this is perfect. I win, you lose, we're both happy.
On Lois and Clark, they play Clark as a very competent reporter. I actually believed that Lois could fall for a guy like that. This was the place where you got to see what could happen between 2 reporters working hard, spending a lot of time together, and actually just ultimately respecting each other so much that they fall in love. She just was in character as Lois, very appealing.
I'd love to play Den Mother, Chief, but I got that LexCorp story in a half an hour.
The writers and animators on the cartoons take all the human stuff that has worked on Adventures of Superman and Lois and Clark and Smallville and play it against the fantasy stuff that live-action shows have a limitation about making it work. They gave us the fantastic, but kept the heart of all the characters.
I modeled her after Rosalind Russell in His Girl Friday. It's very fast-paced, no nonsense. She's got a sharp tongue.
I'm going to personally lead the army that vaporizes you too.
And she's madly in love with Superman. Just crazy for him. And cannot deal with Clark.
Look, Smallville, nothing against you, but even as a kid, I never liked babysitting.
Wait a minute, she's madly in love with Superman. And whenever I'm madly in love, I act like a complete idiot around the guy and regress to about 6 years old. Suddenly I'm all dewy and coy and don't have a strong bone in my body. But if I'm with a guy who has a crush on me and I don't have a crush on him, I tend to be very butch and dismissive. And so I went, well, why don't you give her that quality? So if you watch Lois in the movie with Clark and with Superman, she's almost two different people, which I did on purpose.
Of course, he did wonderful things and always saved poor Jack and I. We were always tied up or about to get blown up or something and drowned, and he'd always get there in time.
Lois thinks that she can take care of herself and she doesn't need anybody. And I think that she goes so far that way where she will put herself in such danger that she will literally be falling out of the sky, about to die. And then Superman comes in and reminds her that she is vulnerable and that she needs people.
We usually take turns in the bathroom.
Oh, don't start with me, Smallville. You're the one taking the marathon shower. Besides, my delicate feminine sensibilities weren't offended the first time I got a glimpse of Clark Jr.
The decision to bring Lois onto the show was made. It's something we've been trying to do for a while. We wanted to introduce her in a fun way. In Smallville, you don't meet cute, you meet sort of violently, and usually involves being hit by a car. And so, it's her and Clark in the cornfield and he's naked, which we thought for those two characters, what a great way to meet. And of course, Clark doesn't know who the hell she is.
Look at his face.
Creating Smallville, sort of setting it in a modern time, was you had to sort of update or change the lore for various reasons.
And it's great to think about that, going back in time and having Lois be younger and get to see her that way.
Alan, Miles, and Jeff have been really great, as far as giving me a focus as to what they kind of have an idea of what they wanted Lois Lane to be. Regardless of the fact that it's Lois Lane and the fact that other people have done marvelous jobs portraying her before, this is different. She's younger. Each person does it differently. However, I couldn't really take too much of that and then apply it to the teenage Lois Lane because she's dealing with her history, and I had to deal with where she came from and having a military father and being a military brat and having a sister that she had to take care of. And so I had all of that to actually do justice to, so I couldn't really kind of focus, okay, what is the future Lois Lane? Which has worked out well because then as Lois finds it, Erica finds it in it, and it works out well. I don't know how you ever survived without me.
I think it's good to mess with myths. Why not? They're constantly evolving.
We all had our different takes on it, and I don't think one was better than the other.
It was a smart, tough, but sexy gal who worked in a man's world.
It was interesting. I did a lot of the college shows in the 70s, and a lot of little gals would come up to me and say, gee, it was something when I saw you on the tube, working as a woman in the newspaper office and part of the men's club and whatever. And so it gave me courage to get out and do it, either in the radio or TV or whatever they were doing.
She was intelligent and clever and fun and her own woman, and yeah, I definitely had a romantic side, but didn't completely fall into the guy, I think.
They are timeless characters. Like we've been saying, their archetypes are mythic. They fulfill a certain need in us.
It's a classic battle, much like the ancient Greek dramas between good and bad. And you're rooting for good. And you want good to come in the end. So there's a little moral lesson. And you kind of know that good will triumph, but it's going to get a good run for its money.
If I could describe my time here in one word, it would be weird. I look forward to the relative normalcy of the big city. But don't worry, I'll visit.
Is it a promise or a threat?
See you around, Smallville.